The starship Horizon drifted silently through the vast emptiness of space. Its sleek, metallic frame glinted faintly under the light of a distant star. Inside, the hum of machinery and the soft glow of control panels created an atmosphere of calm, mixed with anticipation. Captain Laura Hayes stood at the center of the bridge, her sharp eyes scanning the holographic display projected in front of her. The mission was supposed to be routine, charting an unexplored sector of the galaxy, but something about this region felt different. There was no visible danger, yet unease lingered in the air like a storm waiting to break. Laura glanced around the room at her crew. Lieutenant Daniel Carter sat at his station, his fingers flying over the navigation controls as he plotted their course. He was young, maybe too young for such responsibility, but his quick thinking had saved the ship more than once. Beside him, Dr. Emily Walsh leaned over her console, her brow furrowed in concentration. She was the ship's chief scientist, known for her curiosity and knack for solving puzzles that seemed impossible to others. Her presence always brought a sense of reassurance, even when things went wrong. "Anything unusual on the scanners?" Laura asked, breaking the silence. Daniel shook his head. "Nothing so far, Captain. Just empty space." Emily frowned slightly. "It's odd, though. This sector is rich in cosmic dust, which usually hides all sorts of anomalies. I expected at least some debris or energy signatures." Laura nodded thoughtfully. It was true. The nebula they were approaching should have been teeming with activity. Instead, it felt eerily quiet, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. She tapped a few commands into the holographic interface, enlarging the image of the swirling clouds ahead. The colors shifted between deep blues and fiery reds, creating a mesmerizing effect. But there was something else, a faint blip near the edge of the nebula that hadn't been there moments ago. "Do you see that?" Laura pointed to the screen, drawing everyone's attention. Daniel zoomed in on the blip, adjusting the sensors to get a clearer reading. "It's not natural," he said after a moment. "Whatever it is, it's big, and it's not moving." Emily leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. Could it be a derelict ship? The suggestion sent a ripple of tension through the room. Derelict ships were rare finds, often carrying secrets or dangers left behind by those who had ventured too far from home. Laura hesitated before responding. "Let's take a closer look. Prepare a shuttlecraft for inspection. We'll send a small team to investigate." As the orders were relayed, the crew sprang into action. Daniel volunteered immediately, eager to prove himself despite the potential risks. Emily joined without hesitation, her scientific curiosity overriding any fear she might have felt. Chief Engineer Ryan Brooks rounded out the group, bringing his expertise in repairing damaged equipment. Together, they suited up and boarded the shuttlecraft, leaving the safety of the Horizon behind. The journey to the mysterious object was short but tense. As they drew closer, the shape became clearer, a massive vessel, its surface scarred by time and exposure to the harsh conditions of space. The design was unfamiliar, unlike anything documented in human history. Strange symbols adorned its hull, glowing faintly in the dim light of the nebula. One word stood out among them. Erebus. "That can't be right," Emily muttered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the shuttle's engines. "The Erebus disappeared centuries ago. It's just a myth." Daniel glanced at her, his expression skeptical. "A myth? Like a ghost story?" "Not exactly," Emily replied. "According to legend, the Erebus was one of the first ships sent to explore deep space. Something went wrong during the mission. No one knows what, and the entire crew vanished without a trace. Some say the ship was cursed because it strayed too far into forbidden territory." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Forbidden territory? Sounds like something out of a bad movie." "Maybe," Emily admitted. "But myths often start with a grain of truth. If this really is the Erebus, we could be looking at evidence of humanity's earliest attempts to leave Earth behind." The shuttle docked with a soft thud, and the team stepped onto the silent deck of the ghost ship. The air inside was cold and stale, heavy with the weight of years gone by. Flickering lights cast long shadows across rusted corridors, while strange symbols glowed faintly on bulkheads. Every step echoed unnaturally, as if the very walls absorbed sound. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming, though no one dared to admit it aloud. "This place gives me the creeps," Ryan said finally, breaking the silence. "Feels like someone's watching us." Daniel nodded in agreement. "Yeah, but who? Or what?" Emily ignored them, her focus entirely on the task at hand. She snapped photos of the symbols, comparing them to images stored in the ship's database. To her astonishment, several matched patterns found in ancient Earth texts about celestial navigation. "These markings, they're part of an old language used by early astronomers," she explained. "They believed these symbols held power over the stars." Ryan snorted. "Great, so we're dealing with superstitious aliens now?" Before Emily could respond, the ship groaned ominously and the lights dimmed again. For a moment, everything went pitch black. Then, slowly, emergency. Lights flickered back to life, casting an eerie red glow over the surroundings. The team exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to do next. "We need to find the source of power," Ryan said firmly. "If we can restore systems, maybe we'll figure out what happened here." They moved cautiously through the corridors, following the faint hum of machinery until they reached a central console. Ryan got to work, his hands moving deftly over the controls. After several minutes of tinkering, the screens came alive, displaying grainy footage of panicked crew members speaking in hushed tones. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide with terror. "There's something out there," one of them whispered. "Something beyond the stars." The log ended abruptly when a shadowy figure passed through the frame, causing static to engulf the screen. Daniel turned pale. "What the hell was that?" Emily didn't answer. She stared at the frozen image, her mind racing. Whatever had driven the original crew mad was still here, lurking in the shadows, and it wasn't done with them yet. As they prepared to leave, faint whispers began to echo through the halls. At first, they were indistinct, almost like the wind brushing against metal. But soon, the voices grew clearer, calling out their names, one by one. Laura, Daniel, Emily, Ryan. "Did you hear that?" Daniel asked, his voice trembling. Ryan shook his head. "Hear what? Stop messing around." But Emily knew better. She grabbed her communicator and spoke urgently. "Horizon, this is Dr. Walsh. We need extraction immediately. Repeat, we need extraction now." There was a pause before Laura's voice crackled through the device. "Understood. Stand by for retrieval." The team hurried back toward the shuttle bay, their footsteps echoing louder than ever. Behind them, the whispers grew louder, almost deafening. They reached the shuttle just as the doors began to close, sealing them off from the nightmare within. Back aboard the Horizon, the crew gathered. In the briefing room, shaken but alive, Laura listened intently as Emily recounted everything they had seen and heard. When she finished, the captain sighed deeply. "So, what do we do now?" Daniel asked. "Leave it alone, or try to destroy it?" Laura hesitated. The Erebus was dangerous, yes, but it was also a piece of history, a mystery waiting to be solved. Destroying it would mean losing any chance of understanding what had happened to the original crew. Leaving it, however, carried its own risks. For now, all they could do was wait and hope that whatever lurked inside the ghost ship stayed asleep. The crew of the Horizon gathered in the briefing room, their faces reflecting a mix of fear and determination. Captain Laura Hayes stood at the front, her arms crossed as she studied the holographic display showing the ghost ship Erebus. The image was grainy, but its massive frame loomed ominously even on the screen. It felt like a living thing, watching them from the darkness of space. "We can't ignore this," Laura began, her voice firm but measured. "The Erebus isn't just a derelict ship, it's a piece of history. But we also know it's dangerous. Whatever happened to its crew is still there." Dr. Emily Walsh nodded slowly. "There's no doubt about that. The logs we found mentioned something unnatural, an entity maybe, something beyond human understanding." Lieutenant Daniel Carter shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He had seen the shadowy figure in the footage, heard the whispers calling his name. He wanted to believe it was all some kind of malfunction or trick of the mind, but deep down, he knew better. "So, what's the plan? Do we destroy it, or do we keep investigating?" Chief Engineer Ryan Brooks leaned forward, his expression skeptical. "Destroying it might not even work. That ship looks ancient, but its systems came online when we touched that console. It's possible it has defenses we don't understand." Laura considered their words carefully. Destroying the Erebus outright seemed reckless, especially since they didn't fully grasp what they were dealing with. On the other hand, leaving it alone wasn't an option either. If the legends were true, the Erebus had been adrift for centuries. Who knew what kind of threat it posed if left unchecked? "For now," Laura said finally, "we monitor it. Keep our distance, but stay close enough to observe. If anything changes, if it moves or sends out signals, we act immediately." The decision settled uneasily over the group, but they followed orders. Over the next few hours, the Horizon remained in orbit around the nebula, its sensors trained on the ghost ship. Everything appeared quiet, too quiet. The Erebus sat motionless, its glowing symbols casting faint light into the surrounding void. It was almost peaceful, as if the ship itself had fallen asleep again. But peace never lasts long in deep space. It started with a small blip on the radar. At first, no one paid much attention. Stray asteroids and debris were common in nebulae. But then more blips appeared, forming a pattern. Someone, or something, was approaching. "Captain," Daniel called out from his station. "Multiple contacts detected. They're ships, and they're heading straight for us." Laura rushed to the bridge, her heart pounding. The view screen lit up with images of sleek, menacing vessels closing. In fast, pirates, space scavengers who thrived on raiding unsuspecting ships and claiming whatever valuables they could find. Their reputation was brutal, and their arrival spelled trouble. "Raise shields," Laura ordered sharply. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers." The crew sprang into action. Alarms blared throughout the horizon as the pirate fleet drew closer. Energy blasts streaked past the ship, rocking it violently. The pirates weren't wasting time. They fired relentlessly, forcing the Horizon to dodge while trying to return fire. Daniel gripped the controls tightly, weaving the Horizon through, a hailstorm of projectiles. "They're faster than us, Captain. We won't be able to outrun them." Ryan cursed under his breath as he monitored the shield levels. "Shields are holding for now, but we can't take much more of this." Emily watched helplessly from her station, torn between fear and frustration. She hated feeling useless during battles, but her expertise wasn't combat. It was unraveling mysteries. As she stared at the view screen, her eyes drifted back to the Erebus, still silent, still unmoving, and then an idea struck her. "Captain," she said urgently, "what if we use the Erebus as cover? Those pirates are after loot, right? Maybe they'll focus on the ghost ship instead of us." Laura hesitated. Using the Erebus as bait was risky, especially since they didn't fully understand its capabilities, or lack thereof. But desperate times called for desperate measures. "Do it," she commanded. "Position the Erebus between us and the pirates. Let's see how they react." With precision, Daniel maneuvered the Horizon behind the massive ghost ship, using its bulk as a shield. For a moment, the pirates seemed confused, their attack slowing as they assessed the situation. Then, without warning, the Erebus roared to life. Its engines ignited with a deafening hum, sending shockwaves rippling through the nebula. Lights flickered across its hull, brighter and more intense than before. Weapon systems activated, revealing rows of cannons hidden beneath layers of rust and decay. Before anyone could react, the Erebus unleashed a barrage of energy blasts far more powerful than anything the pirates or the Horizon could muster. The pirate fleet scattered, caught off guard by the sudden assault. Ships exploded in fiery bursts, while others fled into the depths of space. Within minutes, the battle was over. Silence returned to the nebula, broken only by the faint hum of the Erebus's engines. On the bridge of the Horizon, the crew stared in stunned disbelief. No one spoke. No one moved. The ghost ship had saved them, but at what cost? What just happened? Ryan asked finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, Laura admitted. She turned to Emily. You were studying the logs earlier. Did you see anything that could explain this? Emily shook her head. Nothing specific, but the crew talked about the entity. Maybe it's controlling the ship somehow. Before they could discuss further, the Erebus began to move again. Its trajectory shifted slightly, turning toward the horizon. The ship's glowing symbols pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. And then faint whispers filled the air. Not inside the Erebus, but aboard the Horizon itself. They're back, Daniel muttered, gripping the edge of his console. Those voices, Laura clenched her fists. Everyone, stay calm. Whatever this is, we need to figure it out before it gets worse. The whispers grew louder, echoing through the corridors of the Horizon. This time they weren't random murmurs. They formed words. Names, commands. Come closer, the voices urged. We have waited so long. Laura exchanged a worried glance with Emily. The Erebus wasn't done with them yet. Later, the crew reconvened in the briefing room to decide their next move. The atmosphere was tense, the weight of the day's events pressing down on everyone. Laura paced back and forth, her mind racing through possibilities. We can't run, she said firmly. If the Erebus is truly sentient, or controlled by something sentient, we owe it to ourselves to understand why it helped us, and why it's reaching out now. But at what risk? Ryan countered. That thing could turn on us just as easily as it turned on the pirates. Emily nodded. He's right. We don't know its motives. For all we know, it might view us as enemies too. Daniel spoke up, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. What if it's lonely? I mean, think about it. It's been drifting out here for centuries. Maybe it wants to communicate. Laura paused, considering his words. It was a stretch, but not entirely implausible. Ancient artifacts often carried fragments of their creator's intentions, whether intentional or not. Perhaps the Erebus was no different. All right, she said finally. We'll send another team inside, but this time we go prepared. Full environmental suits, recording equipment, and weapons. As a precaution. The decision was met with mixed reactions. Some, like Daniel, were eager to learn more. Others, like Ryan, remained wary. But ultimately, they all agreed. Running away wouldn't solve anything. As the second expedition prepared to board the Erebus, Laura addressed them. One last time. Stay alert, stick together, and remember, whatever happens, we're stronger as a team. Good luck. With those words, the team stepped onto the shuttlecraft once more, heading back into the unknown. The Erebus awaited them, its glowing symbols beckoning like a siren's call. Behind them, the Horizon hovered protectively, ready to intervene, if needed. But as the shuttle docked with the ghost ship, none of them could shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The shuttlecraft docked with a soft thud, and the team stepped onto the eerie deck of the Erebus once more. The air felt colder this time, heavier, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. Flickering lights cast long shadows across rusted corridors, while strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls. Every step echoed unnaturally, making it hard to ignore the feeling that they weren't alone. Lieutenant Daniel Carter led the way, his hand resting cautiously on the weapon strapped to his side. Behind him, Dr. Emily Walsh carried a scanner, her eyes darting between the glowing symbols and the data on her device. Chief Engineer Ryan Brooks brought up the rear, clutching a toolkit in one hand and a flashlight in the other. None of them spoke. The oppressive silence of the ghost ship seemed to swallow words whole. "Let's stick to the plan," Daniel said finally, breaking the quiet. "We find the source of those whispers, record everything we can, and get out." Emily nodded, though. Her expression was tense. She had spent hours reviewing the logs from their last visit, searching for clues about the entity controlling the ship. The fragmented messages hinted at something ancient, something powerful, but nothing concrete. Whatever it was, it clearly didn't operate like human technology or human minds. As they moved deeper into the ship, the glowing symbols grew brighter, pulsing in rhythm with the faint hum of machinery. Ryan paused to inspect a wall panel, prying it open to reveal intricate wiring beneath. "This stuff doesn't make sense," he muttered. "It's like organic circuitry, half machine, half alive." Emily leaned closer, snapping photos of the exposed wiring. "If the entity is tied to the ship, maybe this is how it communicates or controls things." Before anyone could respond, the whispers returned. Louder now, almost deafening. They weren't random murmurs anymore, but distinct voices calling out names. Laura, Daniel, Emily, Ryan. The sound sent chills down their spines, echoing through the halls as if the ship itself was alive. "We need to keep moving," Daniel urged, his voice tight with unease. "Whatever this thing is, it wants us to go somewhere." They followed the whispers reluctantly, their footsteps quickening as the voices grew more insistent. The path twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the bowels of the Erebus until they reached a massive chamber. At its center stood a pedestal holding a sphere made of swirling black matter. It pulsed faintly, emitting a low hum that resonated in their chests. "This must be it," Emily whispered, her voice trembling. "The source of everything." Ryan frowned, stepping closer to examine the sphere. "Looks like some kind of alien tech. But what does it do?" Before anyone could answer, the sphere flared brightly, bathing the room in an eerie glow. The whispers coalesced into a single voice, deep and resonant, filling the chamber like thunder. "I am the keeper of paths untaken," the voice intoned. "Bound to this vessel until my purpose is fulfilled." Daniel froze, his hand instinctively, reaching for his weapon. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice shaking despite his efforts to stay calm. "I am no mere being," the entity replied. "I am a guardian, tasked with protecting those who seek knowledge yet fear the unknown. You have awakened me, and now I will guide you, or consume you." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Emily stepped forward cautiously, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "Why did you help us against the pirates?" she asked. "What do you want from us?" The sphere pulsed again, brighter this time. "Your kind trespasses where they do not belong, yet you carry within you the spark of understanding. Prove yourselves worthy, and I may grant you passage. Fail, and you will join the others." Ryan exchanged a nervous glance with Daniel. "Others? What others?" The entity didn't answer directly. Instead, images began to flicker around the chamber. Holographic projections showing scenes from centuries past. A crew of humans working aboard the Erebus, their faces filled with awe and wonder. Then, chaos, panic, shadows moving through the corridors, consuming everything in their path. The final image showed the crew vanishing one by one, leaving behind only empty halls and glowing symbols. What happened to them? Emily asked softly, her voice barely audible. They sought answers beyond their comprehension, the entity replied, and they paid the price. Laura's voice crackled over the communicator, breaking the tension. Team, status report. Are you okay? Daniel hesitated before responding. We're fine. For now. We've found the source of the whispers. It's some kind of alien intelligence. There was a pause before Laura replied. Understood. Proceed with caution. If things turn bad, signal for extraction immediately. The team exchanged uneasy glances. Extraction sounded good, but none of them wanted to leave without answers. Emily took a deep breath, steeling herself before speaking again. What do you mean by prove ourselves worthy? She asked the entity. How do we show you we're ready? The sphere dimmed slightly, as if considering her question. You must confront your fears. Only then will I know if you are fit to continue. With that, the chamber shifted. The walls dissolved into darkness, replaced by endless voids stretching in every direction. One by one, the team found themselves separated, standing alone in surreal landscapes that mirrored their deepest anxieties. For Daniel, it was a battlefield, a chaotic swirl of explosions and screams. He saw faces of comrades lost in previous missions, their accusing eyes piercing through the smoke. You couldn't save us, they whispered. Why should you survive? Emily faced a different nightmare, an endless library filled with books that crumbled to dust the moment she touched them. Each page held secrets she desperately wanted to uncover, but no matter how fast she moved, everything slipped through her fingers. You'll never understand, the voices taunted. You'll always be too late. Ryan's trial took the form of a collapsing engine room. Flames licked at his skin as he scrambled to repair a failing reactor, his tools slipping uselessly from his hands. You're not good enough, the fire hissed. You'll destroy everything. Each vision was vivid, overwhelming, pushing them to their limits. But slowly, painfully, they began to push back. Daniel reminded himself that survival wasn't failure, it was resilience. Emily accepted that knowledge came in pieces, not all at once. And Ryan realized that mistakes were part of learning, not reasons to give up. As they conquered their fears, the visions faded, and the team found themselves reunited in the chamber. The sphere pulsed gently, its glow softer now. You have faced your doubts, the entity said, and you have endured. Perhaps there is hope for your kind after all. Emily let out a shaky breath. Does this mean you'll let us go? The entity hesitated. For now. But remember, the path you tread is fraught with peril. Seek wisely, or you may share the fate of those who came before. With that, the chamber doors opened, revealing the way back to the shuttlecraft. The team wasted no time, hurrying toward safety. As they boarded the shuttle and prepared for departure, none of them spoke. The weight of what they had experienced lingered, unspoken but undeniable. Back aboard the Horizon, Captain Laura Hayes greeted them with relief and concern. Report, she ordered, her tone sharp but gentle. Emily summarized their encounter, describing the entity and its cryptic warnings. When she finished, Laura sighed deeply, rubbing her temples. So, we're dealing with something far beyond our understanding. Something that views us as both allies and threats. Daniel nodded grimly. It helped us once, but I don't think we can count on it again. Not unless we prove ourselves. Laura stared at the holographic display showing the Erebus, still, floating silently in the nebula. Then we'd better start proving ourselves, and fast, because whatever that thing is, it's not done with us yet. The crew of the Horizon spent hours discussing what to do next. The Erebus loomed large in their thoughts, both literally and figuratively. It was a mystery wrapped in danger, and none of them could shake the feeling that they were being watched, even from afar. Captain Laura Hayes paced the bridge, her mind racing with possibilities. She knew they couldn't simply leave the ghost ship behind, but staying close carried its own risks. "We need more information," she said finally, breaking the silence. "If we're going to deal with this entity, we have to understand it better. Emily, can you analyze the data we collected during the last mission?" Dr. Emily Walsh nodded, though her expression was troubled. "I'll do my best, but it's not going to be easy. The symbols, the sphere, it's all so advanced. I've never seen anything like it." Lieutenant Daniel Carter leaned forward, his voice tinged with frustration. "It's not just about understanding it. We need to figure out how to communicate with it. If we don't, we might end up like the original crew." Chief Engineer Ryan Brooks chimed in, his tone skeptical. "And what exactly does communicate mean here? Are we supposed to chat with it over tea? That thing is dangerous, plain and simple." Laura held up a hand to quiet them. "We're not giving up. Whatever this entity is, it's intelligent. And it helped us once. That means there's a chance we can work with it. But we need to approach this carefully." With that, the crew got to work. Emily retreated to the lab, poring over scans and recordings from their encounter. She focused on the glowing symbols etched into the walls of the Erebus, comparing them to ancient texts and languages stored in the ship's database. Slowly, patterns began to emerge. Some of the symbols matched phrases found in old Earth myths about celestial guardians, beings who protected travelers in the stars. Others seemed to reference paths or routes, as if the Erebus itself was designed to guide ships through uncharted space. Meanwhile, Daniel worked with the navigation team, analyzing the ship's movements during the battle against the pirates. He discovered that the Erebus hadn't acted randomly. It had positioned itself strategically, anticipating the pirates' attacks before they even happened. "It's like it knows things before they happen," he told Laura during one of their updates. "Either it's reading our minds, or it has access to some kind of predictive technology." Ryan, for his part, focused on the engineering side of things. Using footage from the chamber where they'd encountered the sphere, he tried to reverse engineer the alien tech. It wasn't easy. The materials didn't match anything in human science, and the way the sphere pulsed with energy defied conventional physics. Still, he managed to sketch out a rough blueprint, hoping it might give them a clue about how the entity operated. As the days passed, tension aboard the horizon grew. The Erebus remained nearby, its glowing symbols casting faint light into the surrounding nebula. Every now and then, the whispers returned, soft murmurs echoing through the corridors of the horizon, calling out names. Laura ordered everyone to stay alert, but the constant presence of the ghost ship wore on their nerves. One evening, as the crew gathered for another briefing, Emily walked in holding a tablet. Her face was pale, but her eyes sparkled with excitement. "I think I've figured something out," she announced. All eyes turned to her. "Go on," Laura urged. Emily set the tablet down and pulled up an image of the glowing symbols. "These aren't just random markings. They're instructions, directions, maybe even coordinates. And look at this." She pointed to a cluster of symbols near the center of the screen. "This pattern repeats throughout the ship. It's almost like a map." Daniel frowned. "A map of what?" "I'm not sure yet," Emily admitted. "But I think it's leading somewhere important." Laura considered this for a moment. "If it's a map, then maybe it's showing us where the entity wants us to go, or where it came from." Ryan crossed his arms. "Or it's a trap." "It could be," Emily conceded. "But we won't know unless we try." Laura nodded slowly. "All right, we'll follow the map, but cautiously. Prepare a shuttlecraft for another trip to the Erebus. This time we'll bring extra equipment, recording devices, environmental, suits, and weapons, and we'll keep the horizon ready to intervene if anything goes wrong." The team agreed, though none of them relished the idea of returning to the ghost ship. Still, They knew it was necessary. If they wanted answers and a way to ensure their safety, they had no choice but to press forward. The next day, the shuttle docked with the Erebus once more. The team stepped onto the silent deck, their footsteps echoing unnaturally. The glowing symbols seemed brighter than before, pulsing in rhythm with the faint hum of machinery. Guided by Emily's map, they made their way deeper into the ship, following the trail of symbols etched into the walls. As they moved, the whispers returned, soft at first, then louder. Names echoed through the halls, mingling with fragments of sentences that made little sense. "Seek the truth," one voice murmured. "Follow the path," another urged. "This way," Emily said, pointing ahead. The symbols led them to a sealed door adorned with intricate carvings. Unlike the rest of the ship, this area looked untouched, by time, as if it had been preserved deliberately. Ryan examined the door, running his fingers over the carvings. "There's no visible mechanism. How do we open it?" Before anyone could answer, the sphere appeared, floating silently in front of them. Its surface swirled with dark energy, casting an eerie glow over the room. The same deep voice resonated in the air. "You seek knowledge," it intoned, "but knowledge comes at a price. Are you prepared to pay?" Daniel tightened his grip on his weapon. "What price?" The entity hesitated, as if weighing its response. "To understand, you must sacrifice. Leave behind something of value, something that defines you." The words hung heavy in the air. None of them spoke. Each was lost in thought, wondering what the entity meant. Finally, Emily stepped forward. "What do you want from us?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. The sphere pulsed, brighter this time. Images flickered around them, scenes from their lives. For Daniel, it was memories of his family, moments of laughter and love. For Ryan, it was blueprints and schematics, designs he had poured his soul into creating. And for Emily, it was books and notes, pages filled with discoveries she had made. "You must choose," the entity said. "Leave behind what anchors you, or turn back and abandon your quest." The team exchanged uneasy glances. Sacrifice was a heavy demand, but they had come too far to walk away now. Slowly, reluctantly, they began to comply. Daniel placed a small photograph of his family on the ground, a gesture that felt like tearing out a piece of himself. Ryan set down a data chip containing years of research, knowing he might never recover it. And Emily left behind a journal filled with handwritten notes, her most cherished thoughts committed to paper. When they were done, the sphere dimmed slightly, as if satisfied. The sealed door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a hidden chamber beyond. Inside, they found a massive holographic display showing star charts and routes marked in glowing lines. At the center stood another pedestal, this one holding a crystal orb pulsing with light. "This is it," Emily whispered, awe in her voice. "This is what the entity wanted us to find." Daniel approached cautiously, studying the orb. "What does it do?" Before anyone could answer, the entity's voice filled the room once more. "This is the key to understanding. Use it wisely, for it holds truths both beautiful and terrible." The team stared at the orb, unsure of what to do next. They had paid the price, followed the path, but the journey was far from over. Whatever secrets lay within the crystal, they knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The team stood in silence, staring at the crystal orb resting on the pedestal. Its light pulsed rhythmically, casting soft glows across the hidden chamber. The air felt charged, as if the orb carried an energy far beyond their understanding. None of them dared to touch it, not yet. "What do we do with it?" Daniel asked finally, breaking the quiet. His voice was low, almost reverent, as if speaking too loudly might awaken something they couldn't handle. Emily stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the orb. It's a map, she said softly. But not just any map. It shows routes through space, paths no human has ever taken before. Ryan frowned, crossing his arms. And you think this thing is safe? It could be booby-trapped for all we know. Laura Hayes, who had joined the expedition after insisting on being part of the final leg, stepped forward. Her presence brought a sense of calm, though her expression remained tense. We've come this far, she said firmly. If this orb holds answers, we need to take the risk. But we proceed carefully. With that, Emily reached out and gently placed her hand on the orb. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the room shifted. Walls dissolved into starry skies, and glowing lines stretched endlessly in every direction. The holographic display expanded, around them, showing constellations, nebulae, and uncharted regions of space. Each glowing line seemed to pulse with life, beckoning them to follow. This is incredible, Emily whispered, her voice trembling with awe. She pointed to one particular route marked brighter than the others. This path leads somewhere important. I can feel it. Daniel studied the route, his brow furrowing. It looks like it goes straight into the heart of the galaxy. That's dangerous territory, even more so than where we are now. Ryan shook his head. Dangerous or not, this is exactly what we came for. Answers. Maybe even a way to communicate. With the entity, or control it. Laura nodded slowly. We'll chart the course and prepare the horizon for travel. But we're not doing anything reckless. If the Erebus wants us to follow this path, we'll do it on our terms. As they made their way back to the shuttlecraft, the whispers returned, softer this time, almost comforting. Names echoed faintly, followed by words that sounded like encouragement. Trust the path, one voice murmured. You are ready. Back aboard the Horizon, the crew worked tirelessly to prepare for the journey ahead. Navigational charts were updated, fuel reserves checked, and systems double-tested. Daniel plotted the new route, his hands steady despite the weight of responsibility. Emily continued analyzing data from the orb, uncovering fragments of information about the paths it revealed. Some led to barren wastelands, while others hinted at civilizations long forgotten. Ryan focused on reinforcing the ship's defenses, knowing they might encounter unknown threats along the way. If we're going into deep space, he said, grimly, we'd better be ready for anything. Laura addressed the entire crew during a briefing, explaining the mission as clearly as possible without causing panic. We don't know what lies ahead, she admitted. But we've faced challenges before, and we've always found a way through. This time won't be any different. The journey began cautiously. The Horizon moved slowly along the glowing route, its sensors scanning for anomalies. As they traveled deeper into uncharted territory, the stars grew denser, forming intricate patterns that defied explanation. Strange phenomena surrounded them, fields of shimmering energy, bursts of color erupting from distant planets, and gravitational waves that bent light itself. One night, as the crew gathered on the observation deck, Emily stared out at the swirling cosmos. Do you think we'll find something out there? She asked quietly, her gaze fixed on the horizon of stars. Daniel shrugged. Hard to say. But whatever it is, it's probably unlike anything we've seen before. Ryan chuckled darkly. That's what worries me. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden alert. Sensors detected a massive structure ahead, a colossal sphere suspended in the void, its surface covered in glowing symbols similar to those on the Erebus. The ship's engines slowed automatically as they approached, drawn by an invisible force. What is that thing? Laura asked, her voice tight with tension. Emily studied the readings, her eyes widening. It's a gateway, or maybe a portal. It's emitting the same energy signature as the orb. The sphere loomed larger as they drew closer, its surface shifting and rippling like liquid metal. A single opening appeared, revealing a tunnel of light stretching infinitely inward. We have two choices, Laura said firmly. "We either go through, or we turn back." No one spoke for a moment. Turning back meant abandoning everything they had worked for, leaving questions unanswered and mysteries unsolved. Going forward carried risks none of them could fully comprehend, but staying behind felt worse. "Let's do it," Daniel said finally, his voice steady. "Whatever's waiting on the other side, we'll face it together." Laura nodded. "Prepare for entry, shields up, weapons ready, and everyone, stay sharp." The horizon entered the tunnel enveloped by blinding light. Time seemed to stretch and warp, moments passing like hours. When they emerged on the other side, they found themselves in a vast alien landscape. Stars burned brighter here, their light casting vibrant hues across the sky. Planets floated nearby, each one unique and teeming with life. But it wasn't the scenery that caught their attention. It was the figure standing before them. Tall and radiant, it resembled the entity from the Erebus, but far grander, its form shifting between solid and ethereal states. Its voice resonated throughout the ship, calm yet commanding. "You have proven yourselves worthy," it said. "You sought knowledge, and you sacrificed to gain it. Now, choose your reward." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "Reward?" Laura asked cautiously. "What kind of reward?" The entity gestured toward the planets surrounding them. "Each world holds treasures beyond imagination, technology, wisdom, power. Choose wisely, for your decision will shape the future of your kind." Emily stepped forward hesitantly. "What happens if we choose wrong?" The entity smiled faintly. "There are no wrong choices, only consequences." After a long discussion, the crew decided unanimously. They chose a planet rich in resources and knowledge, hoping to use what they found to benefit humanity. The entity nodded approvingly, granting them access before fading away. As the horizon descended onto the chosen world, the crew felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. They had faced unimaginable dangers and uncovered secrets that would change the course of history. But they also knew their journey was far from over. Back on the bridge, Laura looked out at the alien horizon, her expression thoughtful. "This isn't the end," she said softly. "It's just the beginning." And with that, the horizon landed, ready to explore the wonders and challenges that lay ahead. The horizon touched down gently on the alien planet, its landing struts sinking slightly into the soft, glowing ground. The surface shimmered faintly, as if alive, pulsing with colors that shifted between deep blues and fiery oranges. Strange. Plants stretched toward the sky, their leaves translucent and humming softly in the breeze. The air smelled sweet, like flowers mixed with something metallic. Captain Laura Hayes stood at the front of the group, her boots crunching lightly against the unusual terrain. Behind her, Lieutenant Daniel Carter adjusted the straps of his environmental suit, while Dr. Emily Walsh clutched a scanner, already recording every detail. Chief Engineer Ryan Brooks brought up the rear, carrying a toolkit and a cautious expression. "This place, it's beautiful," Emily said softly, her voice filled with wonder. She knelt to examine one of the glowing plants, its petals fluttering as if responding to her touch. "But I've never seen anything like it." Ryan snorted. "Beautiful doesn't mean safe. Remember what happened on the Erebus. We need to stay alert." Laura nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. "He's right. Stick together and don't wander off. Let's gather samples and see if we can find any signs of intelligent life, or whatever left this place behind." As they moved further from the ship, the landscape began to change. The shimmering ground gave way to smooth, glass-like structures, rising from the earth. They were shaped like domes, their surfaces etched with intricate patterns that glowed faintly. Some of the domes were small, no taller than a person, while others loomed high above them, casting long shadows across the land. "These must be buildings," Daniel said, running his hand along the side of one dome. "But who built them?" Emily pointed her scanner at the structure, her brow furrowing as data streamed across the screen. "It's not just architecture, it's technology. These domes are generating energy, but I can't tell how." Before anyone could respond, a low hum filled the air. It grew louder, vibrating through their suits and making the ground tremble slightly. The team froze, exchanging nervous glances. Then, without warning, the largest dome split open, revealing a chamber inside. "Should we go in?" Daniel asked hesitantly. Laura hesitated, weighing the risks. "We didn't come all this way to turn back now. Stay close and keep your weapons ready." The team stepped cautiously into the chamber. Inside, the walls were lined with panels displaying holographic images, maps, star charts, and diagrams of unfamiliar machines. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, much like the one aboard the Erebus, holding another crystal orb. This one was larger, its light pulsing more intensely. "It's calling us," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the chamber. She approached the orb slowly, her scanner beeping wildly as she drew closer. "Careful," Laura warned, her hand resting on her weapon. Emily ignored her, reaching out to touch the orb. As soon as her fingers brushed its surface, the room erupted in light. Holographic projections surrounded them, showing scenes of a thriving civilization. Tall, elegant beings moved gracefully among the domes, tending to gardens and operating complex machinery. Their faces were serene, their movements precise. "They're amazing," Emily murmured, her eyes wide with awe. "This whole planet, it's a sanctuary, a place where they preserved their knowledge and culture." Daniel frowned. If they were so advanced, why did they leave? And why give this place to us? The question hung in the air as the images shifted, revealing darker scenes. Shadows crept across the domes, swallowing the light. The beings looked fearful, retreating into underground chambers as something massive descended from the sky. Explosions rocked the landscape, reducing entire cities to rubble. "They were attacked," Ryan said grimly. "Something came after them, and they had to flee." The projections faded, leaving the team in silence. The orb dimmed slightly, as if waiting for their response. "What does this mean for us?" Laura asked, her voice steady despite the weight of what they had just witnessed. Emily turned to face her, her expression thoughtful. "It means we have a responsibility. This place is a gift, but also a warning. If we want to survive, we need to learn from their mistakes." Over the next few days, the crew explored the planet extensively, documenting everything they found. The domes contained vast libraries of information, stored in formats Emily struggled to decode. Machines powered by unknown energy sources hummed quietly, their functions still a mystery. And scattered throughout the landscape were relics of the vanished civilization, artifacts that hinted at their history, philosophy, and struggles. Daniel spent hours studying the maps, trying to piece together where the attackers might have come from. If we can figure out who or what destroyed them, maybe we can prepare ourselves, he reasoned. Ryan focused on reverse engineering the alien technology, hoping to adapt it for use aboard the Horizon. "If we can harness even a fraction of this power," he said excitedly, "we'll revolutionize space travel." Laura oversaw the operation, ensuring everyone stayed safe while pushing them to uncover as much as possible. But as the days passed, a growing unease settled over her. The entity had given them this planet as a reward, but nothing in life came without strings attached. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being tested, not just for their ability to learn, but for their willingness to use what they discovered wisely. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, the team gathered outside the Horizon. Exhausted but exhilarated, they discussed their findings. "We've learned so much," Emily said, her voice filled with excitement. "Their technology could change everything." Medicine, energy, communication. We could bring humanity to a new level. But at what cost? Laura asked, her tone sharp. Every discovery comes with risks. If we aren't careful, we could end up like them, destroyed by our own ambition. Daniel nodded thoughtfully. She's right. We can't let greed or fear blind us. Whatever we take from here, we have to use it responsibly. Ryan sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Easier said than done. People back home won't care about responsibility. They'll see this as a chance to get ahead, no matter the consequences. The conversation trailed off as the hum returned, louder this time. The team turned to see the entity standing before them once more, its form shifting between solid and ethereal states. Its presence radiated calm, but there was an edge to its voice when it spoke. "You have seen the past," it said. "Now, decide your future. Will you honor the legacy of those who came before, or will you repeat their mistakes?" Laura stepped forward, meeting the entity's gaze. "We won't fail. We'll use what we've learned to protect humanity, not destroy it." The entity studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Then your journey continues. Take what you need, but remember, the path you tread is yours alone to shape." With that, the entity vanished, leaving the team in stunned silence. The hum faded, and the planet seemed quieter, almost peaceful. Back aboard the Horizon, the crew prepared to depart. They loaded crates filled with samples, artifacts, and data, knowing they carried not just treasures but responsibilities. As the ship lifted off, Laura looked out at the alien world shrinking in the distance, her thoughts heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. "We've been given a second chance," she said finally, addressing the crew. "Let's make sure we don't waste it." And with that, the Horizon set course for home, carrying the hopes and warnings of a lost civilization into the stars.